Welcome to my sewing room. We have such an exciting show for you today using lots and lots of wonderful machine embroidery techniques. Let me share with you this wonderful project which my friend Cheryl Capps of Janome America has brought to share with you. This is such a fun way of having heirloom sewing a little bit different. These little covered buttons are so adorable. They have a little machine embellishment, and you see, since we're doing tic-tac-toe, some are robin's egg and some are pink. But isn't that a really sweet way to have heirloom embroidery, heirloom sewing for something other than clothes? I absolutely adore this dress. Cheryl has taken the customizer and she has pulled out little butterflies off of one design card and then come all the way down to the bottom and has the little shields with the little butterflies all the way around the bottom. I absolutely love this dress, which ends up in a beautiful scallop skirt. I bet some of you did not know that you can do silk ribbon by machine also. Cheryl has put the silk ribbon by machine on the front of this absolutely beautiful dress, completely plain except for the beautiful pink and peach and green and ecru silk ribbon embroidery on the front. And for those of you that love to make pretty gifts, and who is that? Well, I think it's all of us. This is a magnificent double needle pin tuck hanger cover with the machine embroidery on the front in such pretty colors. I think this is the perfect gift for almost any lady on your sewing machine list. And now, won't you come along with me to the technique boards? This picture is just fabulous, I believe. I want you to see the beautiful silk dupioni fabric that Cheryl has chosen for the background of this magnificent picture. Now, the techniques that she has used is absolutely wonderful too. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the double needle pin tucked vase for this wonderful floral arrangement. Cheryl has used a relatively small embroidery unit which shows you that you can make a wonderful big picture just using pieces out of whatever size embroidery unit you have. And oh, she has some wonderful techniques which I would like to share with you on the board now. Truly, truly creative. Now, first of all, in order to make the spray, Cheryl has simply drawn her pattern on, you know, where you want the little leaves to go. Absolutely fascinating technique this one is. You see, she has taken two stitches, not one but two. One is a feather stitch and one is another decorative stitch, and stitched over each one of those vines twice. It gives it the most interesting texture that you could ever hope to see, and it's just very, very different from using just one stitch on a sewing machine. Now, this is really fascinating too. When I talked to Cheryl, I said, now what is this upside down? She said, yes, it is. What Cheryl has done here is to take her double needle pin tucks and go on the back side, and then you see just the little stitches. You can count the stitches. When she wanted to make her vase, she put these diagonally and she sewed, hand sewed little beads on every third stitch on her vase using the backs of the pin tucks. And truly, I don't think I've ever seen the backs of pin tucks used before today. Now then, the way you attach the vase to the picture is simply to do a heavy zigzag all the way around it. And then here comes the fun. All right, here the picture is with the vase already. You take your design template, your placement template, and I've placed it here and one little spray of these lovely Australian wildflowers. Then I can come over here and decide where I want the next spray to go, and then move it on around. With my template, I'll know exactly where I'm going to put all of the wildflowers. Now, I'm going to bring this piece over here so Cheryl can show you herself exactly how she created this absolutely wonderful picture. And now that I've talked about you and your wonderful things, Cheryl Capps, who is the educational coordinator for Janome America. Cheryl, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Martha. Glad to be here.
Oh, I can't wait until you show us what you've done. Now, do you want me just to hold this a minute?
That'll be fine.
Okay.
Well, the first thing I did, which you talked about, Martha, was I pin tucked a piece of the silk dupioni, and when I laid the vase pattern on it, I kind of looked at it and I thought, you know, it might be interesting to see what it would look like on the reverse. So I put it on the reverse, And I'm trying to just find new techniques for ladies when we're teaching at your school, etc. And this was a project for your school initially. So anyway, I ended up doing it on the reverse side. So this is what this piece here shows, is that my vase is put on the diagonal for more interest in my vase. And you just started off with a plain piece of silk dupioni to do your pin tucks with. And once we started the whole vase project, there was a larger template for all of the fern that was traced onto the silk dupioni. Which, Martha, if we look at this, you'll see that that's what we started with.
It's so pretty.
Traced out your fern, did the embroidery on it. And once that was completed, then you cut out your vase from your pin tuck and fused it down, and then did your nice little satin stitch around the edge of your vase. Then you were ready to actually start laying down the templates for your placement pieces. I want to talk about how we did this. Once it was traced onto the pattern, the first stitch was really a feather stitch that was stitched. And so what I'd like to do is just go ahead, I've got a piece that's all traced out with the little piece of fern. And I'm going to just go into the sewing machine and select pattern 28, which is my feather stitch.
You know, Cheryl, that's one of my favorite stitches for sewing, period.
Well, we can do a lot with the feather stitch, Martha, because we can adjust our width on it and our length. And what I found it most interesting to do was to start with it at a 5 millimeter and bring it down at the end so that the fern looked a little tinier. So what we're doing here is we are just simply going to do that. As we are sewing, Martha, I can decrease my length just following the line on and I can position the needle, which I just did, to stop in the down position. The machine, I'm using a knee lift, so I don't have to.
Your third hand is what I call that wonderful knee lift, Cheryl.
Exactly. It's my third hand. And I'm just pivoting and I'm turning as I go, and I'm just increasing and decreasing the size of the fern here.
As you go along, you
as
increase
I go,
and decrease.
You see, I didn't even have to adjust anything.
That was one of the tricks
I
of that wonderful picture.
That's exactly, so that would be the first step would be just to stitch your fern. Then we can go select the second stitch, which is a sculpture stitch on the sewing machine.
I like the name sculpture stitch.
And it just, I tried some different techniques when I was doing this, and I was just looking for something different to do. And so I just experiment. And I like to share with ladies, Martha, that a lot of times you need to experiment with your stitches and do try laying one stitch over the other. We'll just do a little bit of the sculpture stitch here. And I think you can see that you have an interesting look.
It does make it an interesting look. It just gives it such texture, and I love the way you went out and in and out and in on that feather stitch too.
And that's exactly what we did. That's how it was all
created. And then you use your
placement
placement piece. And Cheryl, on pictures like Making Home Decorating, where do you get your ideas on which of the designs to use and how big to make your pot? And
well, sometimes I like to tell ladies I get inspiration from pictures in magazines. Quilt shops are an excellent source to go to for inspiration. We have all of the companies, we have a lot of wonderful embroidery cards and patterns, but we don't know how to use them.
Cheryl, I know that, but the thing about it is everybody's going to watch television and learn how to use all of this.
We hope so.
Cheryl, thank you so much for being here again today.
Thank you.
You have been such an inspiration.
Thank you, Martha.
And now we have some exciting and clever notions to share with you.
What we have for you here today is a combination of different projects that you can do to utilize the full capacity of your machine. And so many of the ladies today buy the top-of-the-line sewing machines, and they get home and they look at their stitch menu and then they're not sure what to do with them all. And that's what much of the focus of my work is what to do with all these decorative stitches. Technology has changed our sewing world so much in the last 5 to 7 years because of all the new computerized machines. And they are loaded with all kinds of potential. And so, being an Iowa farm girl at heart, I feel that I need to justify my purchase, and I also like to help folks like you figure out what to do with them. So we have utilized the decorative stitches in construction processes of the landscapes, in stitching the mountains and all the scenery in the landscape. We've also utilized some of the machine embroidery capacity of the machine in doing computerized programs that will stitch out beautiful designs, such as the hot air balloon that you see, the sailboat in the water. And we've used wearable art garments also as a palette for the decorative stitches.
For our Sew Kool for Kids segment today, I have invited as my special guest my daughter, Joanna Pullen Hammett. Joanna, I'm just going to turn it over to you.
Okay, I'm so glad to be here. Today I'm going to show you how to make a soda can holder. Let me just kind of show you the soda can, which is in here. And anyway, this is great for lunch boxes or, you know, on-the-go picnics or any type of fun activity that you're going to do for the day. First, you take 2 pieces of fabric, cut them into squares, and then you're going to place a piece of insulated batting in between. And the insulated batting looks like this, but I went ahead and just placed it in between the 2 pieces of fabric. You are then going to fold part of the edge down and pin. Next, you're going to fold it in half like this, and if you're beginners, you might want to pin it, but I'm just going to go ahead and sew along the edge, and all we're doing is a simple straight stitch. Put it in all the way down, and remember, keep your fingers away so you won't get the needle caught in your hand. Okay. Next, for the bottom, you're going to smush it in 2. Just like this. And again, we're going to do a simple straight stitch.
It's so much fun to have easy to sew projects for the
It
kids.
is, and all this is a simple straight stitch.
And you know what, Joanna, it's so fun to always be sure and tell everybody you're doing it perfectly.
That's
you're
right.
doing it perfectly, no matter what they do.
No matter.
Kids.
Okay. Next, you are going to make a triangular on the end, and we're going to sew on the triangle. Okay. And again, we're going to do it to the other side. Simply make a triangle, put it under the machine, and straight stitch again.
Very important to keep the fingers out of the way
very
for little
important.
ones.
And now comes the trimming. You're simply just going to trim it. One side and trim the other.
Might should have gotten some bigger scissors.
Yeah, we should have gotten some bigger scissors. Okay. And you also might want to trim along the edges to get the raw edges away.
Okay.
And then next, I'm just going to show you on the one that's already made. You're going to next simply sew Velcro along the edges and then on the inside so you can enclose it. And the way you enclose it, just like this.
Put your can in.
Put your can in, close it that way, and then enclose both the sides. And you've got an insulated soda can holder.
Well, now that is a fun project.
It is.
For the kids, the most important thing, as I think we've always talked about, Joanna, is to tell everybody how wonderfully you're doing it. It doesn't
That's right.
matter if it isn't perfect on the first try. As a matter of fact, it doesn't matter if it's ever perfect.
That's
Just have
right.
fun sewing. And next, I have a wonderful quilt square for you. There is the most beautiful heart on this quilt that I'm going to share with you right now. The heart, of course, has our lace shaping, since we're using those on this quilt. The beautiful ecru French lace. Now look in the middle of the heart. Puffing, ribbon, puffing, ribbon, puffing, ribbon, puffing. But I'm going to show you an easy way to make the inside of this heart. First of all, we're going to shape the heart, as you know we've done in the past. Just shape the heart, pull the strings to make it lay down, and we're going to sew the outside only of this heart, and then we're going to cut away the inside of the heart. Now let me just stick my hand all the way through here to show you. We're going to cut away this little piece after we sew the outside. We're going to make it where we can stick our hand through it. Now then, I'm going to make the strip of puffing. Now let me show you a little magic under here. I make one wide strip of puffing, gathering rows, ribbon sewn on top. You see, you just do the gathering, then sew the ribbon on top, and then I'm going to put the heart down, and then I will zigzag or whatever stitch you want to do on the inside, and then I will go back here and trim away my excess puffing strip. Now, what I want to share with you is how are you going to do that puffing. There are several ways of doing it, but I'd like to share with you the two easiest ways. Okay, if you do not have a gathering foot on your sewing machine, I'm going to show you that all you have to do is run 2 rows of gathering on either side of the strips where you're going to put the ribbon down, run 2 rows of gathering, and simply pull the threads and gather it up all the way across. And you can certainly do that. And you see I've run 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows of 2 rows of gathering across here. After I get it all gathered up, then I will put my ribbon down on top of each one of the gathering rows. That's a very simple way of doing it. But if you are so fortunate as to have a gathering foot, then you're going to trace your gathering lines on, and voila, we are going to just simply do this very, very quickly. And by the way, I always like to start not at the very edge of any sewing whatsoever I'm doing. Okay, then I'm just going to run the gathering foot, and I've got this set on about a 4.0 on the length. But you know what I found with gathering? The most critical thing to do is to test your fabric when you're trying to decide how long you want to make it. Just simply test your fabric. All right, I have 1 row of gathering here, and it's going to be very simple just to simply go back and do the next row of gathering. Once again, I'm not going to start on the very edge. I have 1 row of gathering, and I'm going to just kind of hold it in the middle just a little bit to be sure it goes through flat, although I think it'll go through flat without that. But I'm just going to run my gathering, the 2nd row. See how simple that is with a gathering foot? I just love a gathering foot. And I've run 2 rows. Let me pull this back over here so you can see. I've run 2 rows of gathering, and I'll go ahead and run all of them. Now, when I run gathering rows, what I really like to do is simply to pull it to straighten. You see how pretty that is? And the sewing machines today just make beautiful gathering, which makes puffing very, very easy. Now, after I've run the 2 rows of gathering, I will then come in and just simply stitch my ribbon right down on top, making it so very, very, very easy to have a beautiful heart like this one. You see I slipped my piece I just made underneath here. My heart, I can still run my hand through it on one side anyway. I stitch it down, and then I come in and stitch the inside, and then I will lift this part of the puffing strip and I will trim that away, and therefore I will have a wonderful technique. And now I have a beautiful doll dress to share with you. I think most of you know how much I love beautiful doll clothes, and this dress is, to me, just fabulous. Cecil Elizabeth is wearing a beautiful Swiss batiste dress with what we call a spoke collar. The laces come in between the different areas for the spokes, curved lace on the outside of the spokes, and a beautiful gathered lace at the bottom. Traveling down the dress, we can see that the skirt has those same wonderful spokes with wonderful little dots of hand embroidery, and of course you could use machine embroidery, and lace on the bottom, gathered lace, and then there's a little underskirt with beautiful insertion and gathered French lace edging also. Now, making a spoke collar is what I'd like to talk about today. First of all, you trace off your spokes, trace off your bottom lace and the spoke lines, and I will pin straight insertion on the spoke lines, and then I will zigzag them or wing needle entredot them down. Now, Now here comes the curving the lace part. Let me share with you how easy it is to curve lace. All right, I'm going to pull the lace on the outside, put a pin in my board, pull the lace on the outside, pull the lace on the outside, and when I come to the scallop where I'm going to need to make a miter, I have drawn a line so I'll know where the outside and the inside of the miter will fall. Okay, let me put a pin right here, and I'm also going to put a pin on the inside of the miter. Now the next step will be to pull the lace back on itself, put the outside pin through 2 layers, and then bring the lace around. Now there's a little bit of a lace that's sticking up here. The way we make that lace lay down is I go in and I pull the gathering thread that is in the top of all French lace insertion, and it simply lays down flat. That's all there is to gathering and curving lace. Next step will be to zigzag or pin stitch the inside only of the collar, which is what I have done here. Now then, you see I have shaped the lace, I've zigzagged the spokes, I have zigzagged the inside of the collar, and now then I'm ready for the final step, which will be to take my French lace edging. And I talked a little bit about the pull thread that is in French lace edging, or in French lace insertion too. So let me just demonstrate this. I will take the French edging and pulling the pull thread, which is in the edge, I will simply pull it along and gather the lace, and then I will butt it together. And by the way, some people say to me, now Martha, what if you don't have everything exactly, the lace distributed exactly evenly? Well, it really won't matter because you're never going to see it anyway. However, you just kind of eyeball it is what I would tell you on distributing the lace. All right, now then we're going to use a zigzag. We have the gathered lace. I'm going to use my shish kebab stick to push a few gathers underneath there. But first of all, I'm going to take a couple of little rows of zigzag just to catch it. There we go. Just to get it started. And then I can always, if I want to slip a few more gathers underneath there, I can lower the needle and I can lift the presser foot and just simply slip a little bit more gather underneath there. As a matter of fact, that's not a bad plan. As you go along when you're doing gathered lace to a collar, is just to slip a little bit more gathered lace under there and then just zigzag just a little bit at a time. You don't need to go 500 miles an hour, and you don't need to do too much because you need to lift it up and slip a few gathers underneath there and then gather the rest of the lace and attach it. And now I would like to invite you to come along to my attic. This little apron is probably from the 30s. It is so pretty, and I think it was called a hostess apron when you had something really fancy. This is when you had a dinner party. By the way, this apron is made totally by hand. Beautiful little pieces of insertion and edging at the top, a pretty piece of silk ribbon which hangs loose going down the front of the apron. I think this apron is so cute. It has pockets in it. See, there's a place to slip your hand and actually put something in each pocket. And look at the way she's gathered her edging. And I especially love the little baskets are in each one of these scallops. It has the basket, the leaves, the French knots, and lace and edging around the bottom. What a lovely tradition of wearing a pretty apron like that when you're entertained. For my Sewing from the Heart today, I have a letter here from Claudia Speak that came via email. In my town of Brighton, Colorado, there is a woman named Ginger who heads up a program for the entire state of Colorado that is called Newborns in Need. Every couple of Wednesdays, women gather at a local church and sew. There is especially a need for clothing to fit premature babies. They make clothes, blankets, anything that a new baby might need. Sadly, sometimes the clothing is needed for a little one to be buried in. The community here is asked to help by donating material and sewing supplies. If someone wants to sew at home, they will provide patterns. Ginger, by the way, is a stay-at-home mother with 6 children. Thank you so much for joining me today. I've had a wonderful time, and I hope you have too. Won't you join us next time?